Hi, Craig.
Hi, Sabine.
Good to see you again.
And you, here we are speaking from in lockdown.
From down under.
From down under in lockdown, that's right.
And we just said there is a half an hour difference because I said 5 o'clock. It was meant to be mine 5:30 and your 5.
That's
and
right.
Then you can you catch up on me?
You're speaking from my future.
From the future. You know, when you get to my future, you're gonna have free beer. So
I know. I'm looking forward to that.
When you
That'll be my carrot. I'll just keep chasing your future.
Keep chasing that beer. Speaking of chasing, last time we spoke, we had fires. You remember?
Yeah, we did. We had big bushfires last time.
Could we ever imagine, if we know what's going to happen in the future, that we're going to have the virus, a pandemic like this?
No, it wasn't in my imagination.
So what do these people who predict future, what they call them, you know, did anyone predict this?
Yeah, well, it's like trying to guess the shape of the next cloud, isn't it?
Yes.
You really have no idea what the future holds. We can imagine what the future is going to hold, but we have no idea.
And like, can you predict your next thought?
Nope.
Yeah. So we know nothing, don't we?
Well, we only ever think we know something.
Yeah.
And that's the thing of it too, is it's anything that you do know is only ever a thought that you know something.
Yeah.
You know, in reality, we know nothing. We only think we know. Any knowing is purely of the mind.
Of the mind.
Yeah, yeah.
But what is that there before the mind that seems to know before myself jumps in and says, I know? Is there something prior to the mind that knows?
Well, there's that which is outside of everything, isn't it? There's that which sees non-duality and duality both being as illusory as each other. You know, non-duality. There was a comment that was put on the bottom of the last video that I did, and I thought it was pretty good. It's not on your YouTube page. I noticed it's been deleted now for some reason. Someone must have had a second thought about putting it there, but they've removed it. But they wrote a comment which said, you know, the self likes to have non-duality as a means of comforting itself.
Okay.
You know, non-duality as a tool to deny the existence of everything, and that's very comforting for a self to have. And I thought that was a good comment that someone had made.
Yeah.
That you know, a lot of people, rather than facing the reality of what's occurring, they'll slip into the denial of it. But they'll try and use a higher truth, so-called, to deny the reality of what's occurring right now. For example, you know, some people might think what's occurring isn't really happening, and they'll try and apply a different dimensional truth to a lower plane of existence, if you like. Like this plane that we're in right here, right now, where we're all functioning and operating as individual expressions. There's a virus happening and it's killing lots of people, right? That's at the level of existence that we can see, where you have an ocean with many waves. So for the waves, they're noticing a virus. A higher dimensional truth or reality would say nobody's actually ever being killed. You're not being impacted by anything. And yet what we see happening is what we see happening.
Is it Nisargadatta who said, he said something like, what is unborn cannot die, and what is real never lived? So that's pretty much what you said, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, but it's it kind of goes back to what I was talking about before with walking with all three eyes open, meaning that you can live life seeing what you see as being total reality and illusory simultaneously. So we walk in the reality of knowing that we're currently experiencing a global pandemic with no denial about that. And as a result, we act accordingly to that. We respond as we should respond to a virus. Like currently, we're all submitting to stay-at-home guidelines that the health department have given us. We all wash our hands often, things like that, in order to save lives. So we're saving the life, and we're trying to flatten the curve, as they talk about with this epidemic, to try and bring the level of infection down. That's all actually, that's a real experience. That's something that's actually occurring. On another level, we can take comfort in the fact that this is part of a dream reality at the same time. Both are happening simultaneously.
Yeah.
But we don't deny, one doesn't deny the other.
Yeah.
So the reality doesn't deny the illusion, and the illusion doesn't deny the reality.
It's interesting how people find as an excuse to have little fights over non-duality or duality. So if you mention something about, you know, about the story, life story, they immediately jump in and say, you know, oh, like nothing's happening, you know. And I'd say, you know, nothing is happening. You can talk about this in a meeting to point out to people that there is nothing to find, that there is nothing wrong. But still, in a life, this body, this mind, don't you think they need to function and look after yourself? It's the same way as this body loves being in a dry place, being healthy, you know. If you don't look after it, well, how long you're going to last and enjoy this beingness, awareness, or whatever you call it, existence. And, you know, as it seems like you are not allowed to say anything, as if you lived in, as if you are unborn, really, you are unborn, you know, you are unborn, that's your base. But don't you still have to, you know, we still have to go to work and earn money and all of that. But understand that's all what's happening, and what is like, you get, that body gets moved and has to be looked after. The family has to be looked after. You can't drop it all and say, you know, I'll do nothing about it, and you can't talk about anything anymore. You just, how are you going to communicate with people at work? It's just ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's the, I guess the paradox of it is that, yes, you are unborn, and yet you experience birth and death countless times. You know, birth and death is experienced within what you are, and being unborn. It really gets hard to talk about this stuff when you kind of reach the end of it all, where you can acknowledge being unborn, absolutely, and yet you can't deny birth. You can't deny coming to be, or having an awareness of coming to be. You can't deny that death is something that you will witness as an experience, a conceptual experience, but an experience all the same. So that which is unborn experiences birth and death countless times. You know, simultaneously right now, that which is unborn is dying across the globe at a horrific rate. Number. Birth and death is occurring right now for that which is unborn. So there's that sort of dynamic of simultaneous realities occurring at the same time, and both of those simultaneous realities, the what's called reality and what's called illusion, both of those are just as intangible as each other. Both of those are purely an experience, which is false in itself. The illusory nature of life and the reality nature of life are both just the same. they're both conceptual. They both arise within the mind. They are both part of the mechanism of Maya, of illusion. And there's depending on how you want to take it on, there is a peace that can be found. Like I found at the start of this pandemic, if you listen to what's going on in your own thought processes, it's the same as what's going on in everybody's thought processes, in that there's a fear that people experience, and there's a certain song that is being played, a certain narrative that is occurring, that we can engage in and start getting into panic, and like a lot of people are doing, they're panicking and they're living in fear. And if you listen to that, you can feel that within yourself, that shared consciousness, and you can walk through it. You can breathe it in and consume it. Like fear is something that arises to be consumed. Anxiety is something that arises to be consumed. We don't resist it. We allow it to arise and be digested by that which you are, because it all exists within you. But that is not all that you are. It's just an energetic sensation that we label fear or anxiety during this time. But we certainly don't deny the existence of these things. We don't deny the virus that's occurring, because it is. So this is a once in a lifetime thing. I would not have known that this would occur a week before it happened. Had no idea.
Yeah.
And as it's something that's occurring, and I think there's something you mentioned in one of your text messages, is that, and I'm also exposed to it myself when I go to work, is that there's lots of stories abounding and theories abounding about the reasons why. Like I get people, my work colleagues at work, ask me, what do you think is happening? And I says, well, what do you think is happening? I said, it's a virus. They said, but we want to know what you think. What's your philosophy? And I says, well, I see a virus happening. I see no agenda. It has no agenda. It seeks to express itself through the many bodies around. This virus will seek to jump from one body to the next in order to express itself. But as far as meaning is concerned, I recognize that I will be the one that gives something a meaning or not. I'm the one that's ascribing a meaning to what I see happening. And whatever meaning I choose to give to something, that meaning will be part of my survival mechanism. It will cause me to feel more comfortable. So if I think that somehow, the earth is getting revenge on humans to bring itself back together and to close the ozone layer, that's me attributing motivation to something outside of myself. That's me empowering something outside of me, outside of what I am. And if you're the source of everything, if you're the source of reality, then that can only happen if you ascribe it to happen. The earth will only have an agenda if I give it an agenda. Does it make sense? It doesn't have.
When you say that you give it a meaning, and unless you give it agenda, does it come spontaneously through you? How do you feel like you take an effort in that? Does it happen effortlessly?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, totally. It's the mind is a machine which just operates of itself.
Yeah.
And it labels and it categorizes. So if you're watching the thoughts coming and going, you'll notice that something will just occur of itself to ascribe a meaning to something. So it's like you have you're watching this occurring, and this one might be a little bit more sparkly than the other one. So I'll go with this one because it's doing so. This is meeting some conditioning that I have, and I'll identify with that. But if you're not identifying with anything that's happening, the meaninglessness of it all is pretty much all that's there until meaning is ascribed. Because there is no meaning until there is an identity to ascribe a meaning. Meaning must have a source to give meaning to. There must be a knower in order to have knowledge. There must be a perceiver for something to be perceived.
So it's
Right?
like a virus thing, like basically it's got no meaning, it just appears like any manifestation in the nature, and basically there is no reason for it, so it just is.
Well, this is where you can speak at multiple layers, right? You can speak at the layer of total identification with everything that's going on as a fully body identified individual who sees the wet markets of Wuhan as being the cause for the effect, right? So cause and effect is a way that gets accepted as being a way of thinking that everything has a cause and there's an effect, right? Now that's part of the mechanism of the illusion that there's a cause and effect for things. If you're speaking at that level of recognizing that, yeah, the Wuhan wet markets and the legislation they had there of breeding wild animals and selling them in markets and stacking them all on top of each other, so a virus kind of came through two animals to get to a human. That's kind of how they work at it. So, and then from there, the effect is I now do certain things to protect myself from getting that. Now that's at that level.
Yeah.
Of all of this is total reality, and there's nothing beyond this reality. But that's one layer. But there's another layer which allows someone to see through that and recognize that, well, cause and effect, that's just a way of thinking about things. That's me putting an effect on a cause, or me giving a cause to an effect, of saying that, someone has done this, therefore this has happened. Applying blame to something so as this can be recognized as the reason for it. So the book starts making sense then from that perspective. But on another perspective, it's no one ever dies. The dying is part of the illusion. Just as being born is part of the illusion, and yet it's also reality simultaneously. And it's a brain breaker, this sort of stuff.
Yeah, well, do we react like this just because, like humans, we've got reasoning capacity? But at the same time, at some point, we probably see, or you probably see that this yourself, something similar, that basically, how many microbes we kill by just wiping our face, or like we can't see them, but that's what we do, we kill. And how many birds get run over by the cars, and no one even turns their head, and but when it happens to human, there is the whole because we are very self-centered, we are very important, we are center of the universe, and we are basically, because of that reasoning capacity that obviously got confused for self-center at some stage, I presume. As a baby, we wouldn't have a clue, we wouldn't judge, we wouldn't know about Wuhan, and we couldn't blame anyone. For baby, I presume all is as is. As they open their eyes, they look around, and unless the food is on the table, I'm good. As long as I'm dry, I'm good. But don't you see that most people don't want to know really about it, and they don't want to hear this. and because they'd rather indulge in their suffering and in their like complaining, poor little me, then when like if you try to say something to them to, you know, to keep quiet, and that's, it's all good, you've been fed, you've got enough food, you know, you have the roof, you are well, you know, your body feels like, what's wrong with being in this isolation? It's not that bad, you know, because you've got everything pretty much. People watch television, they've got all the entertainment, but this, but that, and they love their little stories. They don't want to hear about the message still. Most of them don't. But some spiritual people, they're hoping this is going to change the world. But I'm saying it's a bullshit.
Yeah.
It's a total, yeah.
Yeah, and
that's about it.
And that's where the realities, like you try to say, well, this is the you know, put your seatbelt on because now the world is awakening, sort of thing. No, it's not. Nothing's happening here. This isn't going to wake anybody up. It's just this is just a pandemic that's happening. There might be people praying to God or engaging in different things, maybe asking different questions, but it's not a judgment from on high or from a higher consciousness to try and shake the world awake. So, you know, you've got to be awake, otherwise these sorts of things are going to continue happening to you, because, you know, people who are woke don't get the virus, that sort of stuff. You know, somehow they slide right on through, when really, no, you know, shit happens regardless of whatever level you think you're at, with anything.
Yeah.
You know.
So you are not scared of it, regardless if you recognize your true nature, if you awaken sort of from that dream, you know, character. You basically, it doesn't save you. Is it what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Doesn't nothing. You know, what happens is what happens. Like a bird will fly into a window of a house. Yeah. That's just what it did. It just flew into the window of the house and broke its neck and fell on the ground. Or a cat gets run over by a car, or a human catches a virus. There's nothing. Yeah. Nothing bad, or as a result of that person having done a wrong thing, or not asking the right questions in life, and that's why they got them. And that's a horrible thing to say to somebody, when really it's just what's occurring. You know, it's like being rained on. If you stand out in the rain, you get rained on. If you go. Yeah. I heard in Italy there were 100 doctors who have died as a result of the work that they're doing to help people. And that's just something.
It's quite interesting, Craig, when they say that the danger is only for people of a certain age, over 65 or something. How come all these health workers died? Like, that is beyond my understanding.
Well, what it is that people who have certain comorbidities, age being one of them, well, not that age is a comorbidity, but might have diabetes or hypertension or obesity or heart, something with their cardio. If they get the virus, they're more likely to die from it because they're older. So older people are more fragile and more vulnerable.
Yeah, but what with the doctors? Were they of all that, like, is it because of their age, or maybe they were exhausted and their immune system wasn't?
No, it just kills people.
Yeah.
The virus just kills people, and some people it's the sniffles, and for other people it's something else. You know, it's just the way it works for, you know, some certain bodies are molecularly different from other bodies, and some people can have a bit more strength of resistance than other people. But babies die from it. You know, teenagers can die from it. Everybody can die from it. Yeah. But it seems to be, you know, people who are fragile get it more. Like in India, for example, like we talk about social distancing here as being the cure, but see, social distancing is the privilege of the rich.
Yes.
You know, to be able to have space between yourself and the other person is a sign of wealth. It's a rich thing. And the poor who live in the slums of these poorer countries, they don't have the capacity to social distance as much as as much as they can. So for those guys, they can try and do it, but it's going to be difficult for them, or harder for them than it is for us. When we've got a place we can go, we've got a roof over our head, we just lock ourselves in, keep our distance from people in this very spacious country that we have, and things will change. America, with its America's really copying it at the moment. But America, the medical system over there is different from our medical system. A lot of poor people can't afford hospital treatment because it's got to be insurance. So there's a lot of stuff that kind of went unnoticed for a while. And you know, I read somewhere where they were testing the dead to see whether or not they died from coronavirus. And they gave up those tests afterwards. Those people never went to a hospital because they couldn't afford it, so they just died. So it's people who have insurance go to the hospitals. So with America, out of this, you know, they might change certain health policies.
That's what I was thinking. That could be the reality check, you know.
Yeah.
That the system is really crap, like really bad. And to say I'm really this advanced country, you live in the best country in the world, and they believe they're politicians and they have like the worst possible health system. That's disgusting to let people die like that. And I'm hoping this is gonna change something for them, for the better.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's capitalism. You know, it's their map is capitalism.
Yeah.
Other countries have the map of communism. We have a mixture of socialism and capitalism here. That's what gives us a different sort of health system.
Yeah.
But in America, a socialist health system is viewed from their conditions perspective as being a threat. It's a threat to them. And that's why they had the Obamacare thing they called over there, which is just our Medicare. But for them, that was something that was viewed as falling away from the purity of capitalism, where people, you know, basically got to have insurance to cover themselves so they get work with good health insurance. But it's just all different maps, worldview, perspectives of how they do things.
That is scarier than virus. That's scary.
Yeah.
Will not, you know, you have kids and you can't do anything about it if you go without a job for a while, if you're jobless. So you basically let them die just like that. You can't even see a doctor and see if it was corona or something else even.
And there are a lot of like the conspiracy guys in some sense have got the finger on a bit of a pulse, because there are certain Machiavellian things occurring during times like this.
Yeah.
You know, like at the moment here in Australia, they've got this thing. Ever heard of negative interest rates? What negative interest rates are is where the Reserve Bank can go below zero with their interest rates. So at the moment, the Reserve Bank's maybe dropped it from 1.5% down to 0.5%, but they can get to zero and then they can go below zero, to say -4%.
So it's not negative gearing or something? It's not a negative gearing, no?
No, negative interest rates.
Okay.
And what that means is that when you've got money in the bank, instead of the bank paying you interest, you pay them to keep your money in the bank account to that amount. That's the -4% interest rate. So the virus is kind of kickstarting this thing of, please don't use cash. We encourage you to use electronic things. So what they're heading into now with this sort of stuff, this is where the conspiracy people kind of get it a little, they've got a bit of a finger on the pulse with the story that's being told, is that you go to a shop to pay cash. The incentive is to use your telephone or your card rather than cash, because cash can spread the virus. So now they'll start getting into this thing of having an incentive that people who don't pay cash, they get things cheaper than people who do pay cash. Or when you go and remove some money from the ATM machine, they'll make the money have an expiry date to encourage people to use a cashless society thing. So now we're going to be clocking up close to $2 trillion worth of debt. and all our money is going to be going into bank accounts from the people who are working with banks that have, the Reserve Bank has negative interest rates. So we get a wage into the bank, and then out of that comes an interest rate, which goes to pay off towards the money, and for the bank to store the money. Now, the thing with this is, the reason I'm saying that the conspiracy people kind of have something is that what they forget is that this is all just the dreamscape. None of it actually matters. It doesn't, it's like reading a good book that has an adventure theme to it, where things are going on and there's this fight to sort of bring us all under the control of something or other, and then people will rise up and fight against it and all that sort of stuff. It's just the excitement of living life. It really doesn't matter. None of it does.
Yeah.
But we can get so immersed in the story, in the life projection, that we forget. It's just exactly the same as going to bed at night, having a ripper dream, then waking up in the morning, and then have all that fade away from you. It's just that when we're living this life, it takes a bit longer for us to experience that sort of reality as the falling away of this narrative that we're living in this thing called life. So currently, all of us on the planet are going through this incredible apocalyptic sort of scenario where we're all under lock and key in our houses, and all sorts of draconian laws are coming out to hold us in place, and certain countries are getting extreme with their policing to make this to happen. It's okay. Everything remains okay, even though all this is happening at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if you've heard, there are lots of conspiracy theories around also about the virus and stuff like that, or stuff coming out of it, like as we are focused on the virus and all these dead people, and apparently the figures are not as bad as what they present to us, the media. I don't like some, there are lots of, various things they're saying.
Oh, yeah.
And apparently behind the back there is something more serious coming in. They're talking about this microchip that Billy Gates is keen on, and his vaccine. All of a sudden, we know that he's promoting his vaccine for quite a while now, but all of a sudden he jumped in as, okay, there is a vaccine there. They will be available for you, and that's going to resolve our problem. But at the same time, the guy is not a medical guy. He's not like educated in the medical field. He's not in government. I know he's in Microsoft, and Microsoft apparently it's got like installed the spying system. As we talk now, even if this camera is switched off, we can be seen and spied on. That's a fact. But what do you think about this? What does Billy Gates have to do with the vaccine and the corona and being so loud about it and nowadays about it? Like, is he trying really to help the world, or is it endless greed still? Or that is the bit of confusion here at the moment.
And that's the sort of thing where you can look and choose what sort of reality you want to have for this individual here. You can view him as being a malicious person who's out to reap havoc in the world, or you can view him as just an ordinary person who's got so much money, he's rolling in money, that he wants to be a philanthropist to give money away to worthwhile causes and educate people about vaccinations in the meantime. And it's whichever one you want to go with will determine what your next step will be after that. And this is where I say with the conspiracy type stuff is that it'll say things like there's an agenda, there's a global agenda by the rich elite to wipe out 1/3 of the Earth's population because the Earth's overpopulated.
Yes.
And that we've got to wipe out a third of the Earth's population if the rest of us are going to survive, because we're not going to be able to keep feeding these people. So we've bioengineered this virus to kill all these people. And yet, when you try and do the actual research yourself to pin it down, it all just dissipates away. It just vanishes. It doesn't actually lead you to anything where you can actively do anything about it, because it's all in the domain of the mind. It's all just thought processes which generate fear and anxiety, as though this is something I've got to escape from. I've got to do what I can to avoid this. But Bill Gates, like Netflix have donated 7.4 crore, which is a lot of millions and millions of dollars, to the day laborers of India who only live on a daily wage. So Netflix has donated all these people there to the Indian government to help them feed the laborers in India during this time, because they're in shutdown for 21 days. They can't eat. So Netflix is helping out there with that. I just read the other day, Gina Reinhardt has donated $6 million. She didn't need to do that. She could probably donate a lot more, but she didn't need to. And it's how we, you kind of see whatever the narrative is unfolding for you. And I've yet to meet or come across something that's truly sort of malicious in the way that a conspiracy theory would have it present itself. Like there's, if you've got paranoid ideation occurring within you, then these things will feed that type of conditioning. Most people just want to live their lives, from what I say. And
but don't you see at the same time, as much as this being like a shock to to the world, but we know that this planet is overpopulated, obviously, with people like pests, almost. Like I see rats sometimes and I laugh, somewhere on the screen, and I feel like we are breeding like rats in a way, and maybe this is just the nature's way to get rid of us, like same as how we had the Spanish flu, which was kind of similar in a way. Maybe the conditions were worse, but I've actually watched a short documentary the other night, and he talks about how like there was a first wave of it, which wasn't that bad, but the second and the third one hit the wall. It was like that one killed so many people, and some towns actually were barely affected, and some even there will be a rumor like that, the dogs were carriers, like the dogs were carrying, so they would kill. The police would walk around in America. I forgot what town it was. They would kill all the dogs, and the owners would kill their dogs. And it turned out it was just a rumor, it wasn't truth. But now the other day they said almost that they found out in New York zoo there was a tiger that had it, and the
tigers, cats, dogs.
Yeah. What do you think about that?
But so far they've got no evidence that the virus comes from, you can catch corona from your dog. Generally the humans will give it to the animal, but there's no evidence that it will come from a cat to you at the moment that they have. But not to say that it might not be the case. Maybe it could be, but the fearful mind would look at, well, we got to be safe here and just kill all the cats in the town to protect us from this happening. And
shouldn't they keep them inside though? Because there are cats wandering around my yard today, like eating birds and wildlife all the time. Like, aren't they supposed to tell these owners to keep them inside?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. Some things don't make much sense to me, because you go to a supermarket, Craig, and there are people everywhere. Like literally shopping center last Saturday, it was like packed. And
Yeah.
and then you go, oh, you can't play golf. There's one person and another one is I don't know how many 100 meters away, you know, they can't do that. But you can certainly go to the supermarket shopping and it's really congested with people.
Yeah. And that's where sometimes you can, like I've said to people in the supermarket, you know, watch your distances, guys. Keep your distances.
Yes.
Right. I've said that to people. Just keep your distances because
Yeah.
you're walking past them.
Yeah.
So I'll just say, watch your distance. Yeah. It's kind of, it is what it is. It's the reality that we're living in.
Yeah.
Is where people are sort of not really smart, I guess, or savvy when it comes to keeping distances. And it's also such a big change because people are social creatures.
Yeah.
They like to be close to one another and they like to gather with one another. This thing of, you know, because Easter now and nobody can go out anywhere. We're all sitting in their houses or standing in our front gardens. And while we're doing that, is what's keeping us doing that is the thought that maybe that curve's going to go down and we're not going to get as bad as Italy, because nobody wants to get as bad as Italy. Yeah. And we're prepared to pay the price to bring the virus curve down. Now some people struggle with that. Like we've got some people coughing and spitting at the police here, and they're talking about, and if someone dies from that, it's a life sentence in jail or $5,000 fine. Because people, that's just the way it is. They just act in a manner which is not really healthy or conducive to overcoming the social distancing stuff that needs to be happening or following that. But that's kind of how you can make sense out of that. Well, maybe there is no sense to be made out of it. Maybe it's just a matter of watching. That's what's happening. You know, on the narrative. You can see, okay, well, all right. Obviously, you guys want to catch coronavirus. You're not taking on advice. Then you'll wear the consequences of it, and maybe a few other people will. There's not much you can do about it. It is what it is. But it's what's happening within ourselves as when we're looking at that sort of stuff as to what we do with it and how much the love of life basically feeds fear, because we love life, so we don't want to lose life. And that's one perspective of it, is the love of life. Well, whether you live or whether you die, kind of makes no difference in the end.
Did you have any fear from this, Craig?
Did I have any fear from it? That's what I was saying. As I was driving down the road, I could hear the fear arising. Yeah. Right? I could feel the fear arising in the collective consciousness. There's a narrative that's going on. And I hear the narrative in this world today, just as much as anybody else hears the narrative. I'm not deaf. I can hear the narrative. It's what I do with the narrative that makes the difference. So for me, if a fear arises, I will consume it. Or if an anxiety arises, I will swallow it. I will feed on it. And I will just burn it up. And I'll recognize it. I'll look at it and see that the fear is just a thought that's arising, no matter how strong it might feel from what's going on in the world. Like, I don't deny thoughts that arise and come and go. I'm subjected to exactly the same narrative as anybody else, but I'm not imprisoned by them. So I'll have them come and I'll have them go. Yeah. So I don't live in fear with this. Sometimes at work, I'm spending 20 minutes with my work colleagues trying to calm them down so as they can go out and work on the front line and face people who are the ones that are likely possibly to be carrying the coronavirus, because we're frontline health workers. So I've got to go out and meet these people, right? Look at them. We've got a little temperature gun. We've put it on their heads, things like that. So certain staff experience strong fear over being exposed to this.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
certain staff, we've had to arrange a way that they don't have to go out because their own family circumstances make it too difficult for them to be exposed to that, because if they get something, then the rest of their family gets badly impacted by it. So fear is something that arises, and you know, I don't want a life that has no fear in it. Why would I want a life that has no fear? You know, that's why I go to horror movies, just to get a fright, right? I enjoy watching scary movies because it gives me a thrill. So if I'm living a life where I'm experiencing fear, where I'm experiencing anxiety, I'm experiencing joy, I'm experiencing happiness, all of these things give me a fullness of life expression. But it's okay. You know, it's not, people think that, or this thing that they chase after called non-duality or awakening or enlightenment is the absence of these things. It's not. It's the removal of the filters which you seek to put up to prevent them from occurring in your life. And in that, and it really gets speechless to how you can even talk about this, where the fullness of life is completely embraced in every aspect. Nothing is denied, but it becomes something that becomes viewed differently because it's okay for it to be there. It's okay for fear to be there. It's okay for anxiety to be there. It's okay for everything to exist, because in the end, it's all just dreamscape stuff, you know, and in the end, it really doesn't matter. You know, we're all, nobody gets off this planet alive anyway, as far as the individual is concerned.
Yeah. Well, isn't it, if we didn't experience these feelings and emotions, we'd be, well, as good as dads anyway, like,
Well, you would be. How could you talk to anybody?
Yeah.
You know, you've got all these people experiencing fear and you're not experiencing fear.
Yeah.
How can you talk to them? And you know, it's like anxiety. If you're meeting someone who's anxious and you've never experienced anxiety, how can you possibly hope to talk or communicate with someone that's when you're walking in denial about this thing being real for you? You know, and this thing of thinking, this is where the non-duality thing is is a real trap. You know, this thing of getting into this non-duality trip where you just deny the existence of everything. It's all illusory, and then you get a shock when you start noticing these sensations arising within you, like fearful things start happening or things start going on that don't quite fit in with the non-duality mold of it all being
quite
illusion.
frightening, Craig. I agree with you, because it seems what is missing there. This is personal opinion. You're allowed to have opinions in a dream.
Well, of course you
are. Yeah. Yeah. Basically, like stuff that started arising afterwards. I was shocked that I had feelings. I was shocked when I was diagnosed with like autoimmune illness or precancerous condition, you know, that I was really frightened. There was, and actually that was different kind of being frightened. It came, as you said before, when you remove the filter, it came like really from like the full strength. I was like, what's going on? And I was just talking to myself sitting there like, how can this happen? Something is wrong. I went wrong somewhere. That was my mind, because no one tells you, not many do, in non-duality, that you're gonna experience everything that you experienced before. It is just easier because it does not hit the brick wall. It comes from the almost empty. That it comes from spontaneously, but it comes full, and you said in the last discussion, you said it comes full force. The tears come full force, laughter, worry, isn't it? What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And you can notice yourself, well, I notice it when I'm watching TV or I'm seeing something happening, I'll be experiencing the emotion that is being presented, because I am that emotion that's being presented. There's no separation between what I am and that emotion that's being experienced, because there's nothing that's arising that is not what I am. So if there's, and this is when Nisargadatta, in his last days, when his followers was concerned about him, him being in pain and suffering, and his response was, "I am the suffering. I am suffering."
Yes.
Meaning, as though people look at suffering as being something that you should be avoided or that you're not, but purely, in the purest sense, you are suffering. You are that which is appearing. It's okay. I am suffering. I am the fear that arises. And if you are the fear which is arising, then does fear fear? No. There's an awareness of it occurring. But the only reason there can be an awareness of fear is because there's an awarer there. There's something there which can be aware of fear. And that awarer is the illusion as well. The knower is the illusion. The perceiver is the illusion. Not only is the perceived illusory, but so is the perceiver. So is the knower. So is the awarer. The awarer is also illusory. To me, to say I'm aware of something is that's part of the illusion itself, is being aware as well. Awareness itself is an illusion. Yeah.
You just say it because of you have to communicate somehow. But it doesn't really, it's not that way. It's not like I am aware. And it doesn't really matter, even if you communicate that way. If you see illusion as illusion, you don't go back again to believe in it. That's how I see it. Regardless, that you can say, I did this happened to me. It's just to explain to people, they're going to correct you, especially if you're in a duality meeting. But you just need, and you just go piece off, like, seriously, like, because you see the bullshit people trying to correct you, people who really don't walk the talk, and you go, I did this, and who did this and who did that, like, seriously, FO, like, and you just know, you just innately, I call it like a bullshit meta, we all have it. It's like that spontaneous thing that arises before the thought interprets it afterwards. And it says, this is like, this person's got, like, just, please. And they just confuse everyone. As you said before, non-duality is not completed story. It's not completed whatever it is pointing, because everyone believes they're like a Superman. Nothing can touch you. There's no you to be touched. There's no you to feel the feelings. Yeah, it does not hit the center, but feeling do arise, emotions do arise, tears do arise. And actually, someone really attacked me once. They had a go at me really bad. Then I said, well, what happened to Nisargadatta? What happened to Ramana? They were in pain. They were screaming, both of them in pain.
Yeah.
And they didn't master this. I said, well, some people might have some skills to, but these people were in pain. They were not hiding it,
Yeah. Because it doesn't fit the cookie mold of what we think, a successful spiritual life is, or non-duality is. And that non-duality is something that will serve its purpose for a time, but it too eventually has to go.
Yes.
And it's something that you pass on through. Non-duality is only a label. It's a conceptual way of trying to communicate something, but it's so flawed. It gets people in such a tangle. But it serves its purpose. It's quite often on this apparent journey that we're in, that we speak what we think is truth, to only discover 6 months down the track or a year down the track that that was a very shallow perspective that we were talking about at that time. And then we can no longer use those words anymore because they just don't work for us anymore. They no longer nourish us like they did before. And it's where some of these guys talk about you use a thorn to pull out a thorn, right? So the thorn that might be stuck in your arm is the false concept of, say, individuality, right? So you use the thorn of non-duality, non-individuality, to pluck out the thorn of individuality, right? But then you're still left holding on this thorn, which says non-individuality, but it too is a thorn, which has got to be thrown away as well.
Yeah.
So that they've both got to go. And what are you left with when you throw away individuality and non-individuality? What you're left with is the utter freedom of being both and neither simultaneously. You're able to sort of be fluid and just flow between both simultaneously without being bound by either. You can be like that spider that can spin its own web and not get its foot caught in the web that it's weaving, because it's no longer bound. It doesn't have to apply effort to being. And there's a lot in the non-duality circles, there seems to be an effort to be non-dual, that you've got to be something. You don't have to be anything. There's nothing to be. There's nothing to not be. It's just because that concern arises from this thing that's still there, thinking it has to be something or not be something. It's got to be non-dual or it's got to be not non-dual. Both of these things are still part of that energy that's there, the illusory machine ticking away. But both are identical.
Yeah.
You know, and that non-duality, it's, you know, even in the Sin Sing Ming talks about this. Talks about do not even cling to the one.
Yes.
Right? Don't even cling to the one. You know, if you've got non-duality, sees the duality, but don't even hold on to the oneness. Let the oneness go as well. You just let everything go. Nothing has to be held on to.
No.
The oneness doesn't have to be held on to.
I couldn't understand word oneness, to be honest. I tried to understand, probably I tried to understand it, the mind, but I couldn't grasp that, it didn't hit me at all. I was like, what do they mean? Even when it wasn't seen anymore, when I, the way I talk to you now, there's not true, there's no relating, but I still couldn't describe that oneness. What does it mean,
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. And that non-duality.
As you said, torn. I love using that as for the words. We use the words to dismantle this mind. It's all conceptual.
Yeah, yeah. It's really interesting, because basically, what are words other than wind? Being forced through a diaphragm, passing out certain meanings which we've learned, and yet there are certain words that we can speak which are kind of unlocking mechanisms and can somehow untangle and unlock thought processes, and we can follow certain thoughts or concepts through to their own demise. Like we can talk about a place where there are no thoughts. Well, you can't actually, but you can kind of point in that direction. You can bring someone to recognize the cul-de-sac that the mind is. It's just a cul-de-sac. You can get into this eternal loop, which is where a lot of people are. They get trapped in this loop. But recognizing that it's just a loop is part of getting out of it as well. And then you realize there's nothing to actually get out of because you'll never win anything anyway. So in the end, a lot of it is your own internal journey and for what you're experiencing. Part of the reason I dropped out of Instagram recently was because I had this narrative or thought coming to me about not being a destination. You know, not recognizing that there is a destination, but not being a destination.
Yeah.
Don't be a destination. And that's what U.G. Krishnamurti was talking a bit about as well, was that everybody who came to him, he just smashed them down because it was all about them. You know, look to yourself. You know, recognize that you are it. Every thought that you have, everything that arises is you. You are the truth. You are the absolute truth. There's nothing that's going to arise, and I can't be a destination for people or for things that want me to give some meaning that they can hang their hat on and feel safe and secure in. Because you can't do that, because you're taking away from people their capacity to recognize that they are the truth. They are never anything other than that.
Yeah, it was good like that. And this is why seekers don't like him as much, because they want to find, so they want to chase their own tail, their own entertainment, and it's okay as a way of life. There's nothing wrong with that, I presume. But you know, if you really want to end that illusory, like hypnotism, whatever it is,
yeah,
you know, well, it happens or it doesn't, but yeah, if he smashes any seeking, any specialty, about any teaching, and people call him anti-guru, and I completely more and more as a time, because this changes here also, same as with you, like you said, you ended your Instagram, and there are things here, you know, so I'm nothing what I was like a week ago, a month ago, 5 years ago, and every day I see more and more that I'm not special, that no one is special, and I strong, like there is a belief, again, opinion, call it, that people who really collect the seekers, numbers of seekers, to me it's like another ego center, like spiritual ego center, because it gets to them. I want more seekers, or I want more profit, I want more money. To me, you can't teach anyone to breathe. You can point them, and you know, as they say, they can take them to water, but you can't make them drink the water.
Yeah. And that's where what you see there is that people are being those type of things, that people are being a destination.
Yeah.
They're being somewhere that someone can come and receive succor, or receive that's SUCCOUR, sucker, not SUCKER, sucker. But there may be suckers as well, I guess. Yeah. But they have that thing occurring where people are being a destination for people to come to, and to stay there, and to sort of receive something. And there's no right or wrong in that, but you know, eventually at some stage, you'll come to recognize that you're not actually a destination. Are you? You're not a destination. You're not. There is nowhere that you can go to find yourself, because the very act of going to find yourself is you seeking to find yourself. You're already there, doing the looking. You're already being that which is looking. So the very act of looking for a destination is denying that you yourself are it. And what you're doing is creating a destination which is illusory, that I can go to, to receive something from somebody, when that's an illusion.
Yeah.
It doesn't actually happen.
No. No, you can't
And
taste anyone else's meal but your own, and that's the fact.
no, you can't. And what you are is totally whole and complete. But a narrative might arise that tells you that, and even the wholeness and completeness thing too. That's also just a concept.
Absolutely.
And that can go away as well. Because wholeness and completeness is something that will lead you past the thought process which says you're not incomplete. You're incomplete and you're not whole. So the opposite of that is you're whole and complete, but it's using a concept against another concept. And each one leads on, but who would know that?
One exists without the other. If you were not incomplete, you couldn't be complete. If you were not whole, you couldn't be whole. You were not, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So eventually it gets to a point where you can't actually speak.
No. All wrong.
You can't actually say anything. That's just not just words and concepts that you're using. But hopefully these concepts will lead people beyond and words. You see me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what's going on. The internet's dropping in and out.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah. So the words you're speaking.
Yeah, the words that you're speaking will hopefully act as a key to unlock something. But even the notion that there's someone there that needs the words to be spoken to them so as they can be unlocked is also just an illusory thing as well. Because in actuality, nothing is happening. You know, at the absolute side of things, all that's happening are appearances are occurring. You know, there's a light and a sound show going on, and sometimes that can be very strong appearances that will draw you in, be very seductive in their capacity. But there's nothing right or wrong with that, because some movies are really good on TV too. Some of them you really enjoy more than others.
Yeah.
You know, but you can't deny what's going on. As far as like you might watch a movie on TV and it's a real movie, but you can't deny the reality which people are experiencing, because that's just cruel. You know, I couldn't say to the people who are dying in their thousands over in these other countries that none of it's happening. You know, you just got to be not body identified, because that ain't going to work. All that's going to do is make you out to be a bit of an asshole.
That's it. Yeah, I see it that way too. I've heard people saying to depressive people and suicidal people, go and commit suicide. You know, that's non-duality message, and I don't find it right.
No, well, it's not.
I'd say what I'd say to people who are in danger, I'll give them phone numbers. There are people who are skilled, because non-duality people are unskilled, uneducated. They're self-teaching. They're self-appointed teachers and preachers. You know, it's similar to, and often it happens with them, even though they don't walk the talk, to say, so you have a drunk in the gutter telling you how not to drink, how to quit drinking, or you have a heavy chain smoker who tells you how to stop smoking. These people who love, which is usually ego, like a spiritual ego, they love pointing themselves at teachers. Look at me, you know, but the crap comes out of their mouth can be very dangerous, you know, and there should be some control there. I presume there is a control. As people say, there's no control. Well, there is. I'm sorry. There is natural control. There is a control in the nature, like a spontaneous. There is order. I call it order, actually, like the body, how it functions. Every organ is in its place. If you shuffle them around, how long will you last?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
so
totally.
People, they can't be cruel like that. I don't care. You know.
Yeah. Well, that's right. No, cruelty is not something I come from.
I know.
You know, if ever any cruelty has occurred on my part, it would be completely unintentional and by accident, and it will probably be more perceptual on the person's other side because I didn't keep up with the latest trends with how words should be spoken and things like that. Because there's a lot of politically correct ways of talking now, and I'm not up with all of it, so I might sort of say something old school.
Yeah.
But there was no offense intended with it. Like, I'm not out to hurt someone, but yet someone might be hurt. But that's their thing, you know. Offense is something that the other person takes.
Offense
someone
is good for a person, but a person gets offended. That's what I find.
Yeah.
They need to look into themselves. So yeah.
So coronavirus is something that's happening in the world at the moment. And like anything that's happening in the world, it's something that will pass.
Yeah.
It too will pass.
Yeah.
And it will be something that will be historical, just like the bushfires in Australia. They came and they went, and there was a lot of people, you know, lost lives, lost houses, lost livelihood. A lot of animals died. It is now history. This too will pass. You know, this is currently arising, and anything that arises will pass. And I suppose there's the knowing of that, because well, that's what is the understanding of it at the moment, is that this will pass.
That's all you can say. That will pass.
Yeah, it will pass.
Yeah.
And that can be a source of encouragement for people.
Yeah.
Is that keep yourself safe, do what you have to do to keep safe. Practice mindfulness with your thoughts that arise, meaning don't overly identify with them. If you're having thoughts about things, then you hold those stories lightly. You don't overly invest in something, a narrative. It just comes and it goes. And eventually we'll all be looking back on this, and it will be definitely, as they're saying now, more people in New York have died from this than what happened with the World Trade Center.
Absolutely.
And that's a horribly traumatic thing for people.
God knows how many more. We don't have a clue or where.
Well, we don't, and there's no knowing as to whether or not there's going to be a cure for this eventually. This thing could do an annual circuit for all we know. Just like the flu. We just don't know what the future holds at the moment with this. They've got they're talking at the moment of using plasma from people who have had coronavirus and recovered from it as potentially having some sort of curing potential in people, like a vaccination type thing, but it's still only thoughts that they're having at the moment as to whether or not that will work because of antibodies.
That medication for malaria might help a bit. So
yeah, another thing too, for malaria or anti-HIV things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the rest of them, SARS and the other swine flu, they seem to have gone, but this is like so many times worse. So what's going to happen?
Well, SARS was a type of corona too.
Yeah.
But what do we talk about besides this at the moment? It's all absorbing for people.
Yeah.
And it's interesting where I work, just seeing how people respond to this. There is a lot of fear. People are experiencing fear, and I think but the most helpful thing we can do is just to remain calm ourselves and be that calming influence to the people around you. You yourself, when you yourself are set free from fear, those around you will be automatically liberated.
Yes.
But to be set free from fear means that you must have experienced fear in order to be set free from it. You can't. It's not about being set free from fear isn't denying fear. Being set free from fear is consuming fear, recognizing that fear is an illusory. It's just a thought.
Yeah.
And in the end, when you look out, it's still a beautiful day out there. There's beautiful clouds. There's beautiful trees. There's animals roaming around the place. There's that video that's getting around on YouTube about rivers are clearing up and mountains are getting seen again, and animals are wandering the streets. That, you know, it's there's still a lot of good things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Still a lot of good things happening in the world.
Like dance, have a laugh, and do something. There's lots to watch, and you do what you love.
Absolutely. But even on the Titanic, the music was still playing.
Yeah.
As it was sinking,
Like,
and it's how you
big Titanic at the moment.
Everyone. You want to go out. it's how you want to go out. It's yeah, relax.
In the Titanic, they had lots of entertainment going on still. You can play a poker, you can eat food, chocolates.
I got Xbox, I got Netflix.
See?
I got lots of things
I don't have any of it, and I'm still fine. I love it. I've got none of it. I've got a YouTube channel.
Good on you.
Can't get enough of having nothing.
Good on you.
The best thing I've ever had. I mean, the best thing I've never had. So good, you know. I play my music sometimes, and I don't know. I work from home, so I'm quite busy. So yeah, no time to get bored. And I was never bored ever. Like, I can always entertain myself. I don't need other people to entertain. For me, I can be cut off for the rest of my life from people. I'm fine. If people are there, that's okay. If they're not there, that's okay.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's good. Whatever happens, happens. So yeah. And keep safe.
Thank you.
So good to talk to you, and I'm hoping to talk to you soon again, and maybe have a few people join us next time.
Yeah, sure. If you want, that'd be good.
Yeah, that'd be good. And look after yourself. All the best to your family. We'll be in touch. And thank you so much.
Thanks, Sabine.
Okay.